Welcome to the Pick Up the Flow show. I'm the host, Selwa. And today my guest is Katyann Gonzalez, video editor based in New York. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. And can you introduce yourself for those who may not be familiar with your work?
Sure. I'm Katyann Gonzalez. I'm a video editor. I work mostly in documentary, but most recently I'm working on a horror movie, which has been a long time goal. I grew up in Long Island. I don't know why I looked at you for that, for the answer. I grew up in Long Island, really close to JFK Airport. Lived in New York my whole life. And yeah.
Nice. So I want to dive into your childhood and what was your favorite memory like growing up?
My favorite memory, I really loved Easter. Obviously Christmas was super fun too, but just my mom is an Irish immigrant and really Catholic, and she freaking loves Easter, and so I feel like that holiday was always really special. And my cats.
Nice.
Probably just hanging out with my cats.
So like, did you have any aspirations like growing up or?
I wanted to be a lawyer because I really loved Legally Blonde. And I wanted to go to Harvard and be a lawyer, but I started smoking weed when I was in high school. And then I was like, I actually just want to party and be a slacker. So yeah, things changed. And then I wanted to be a music journalist.
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting because we met through the music community and you're a video editor, and yeah, I'm curious, like what led you to video editing?
Well, I wanted to be a music journalist by the time I graduated from high school, so I went to SUNY Purchase and I was studying journalism, but I found the interviewing process to be really stressful, and I just didn't really have the confidence in my writing and stuff like that. So I took a broadcast journalism class and I learned how to edit in Final Cut. And this was also an art school, so I was like up against like an arts program and like getting into video art, and I just started like editing stuff, and I really liked using the program, and I eventually realized that I could fuse this interest in journalism and storytelling with this technical skill that I was learning and could make a good living off doing it. So nice. When I graduated from school, I just started trying to get a job editing.
So like you said, the programs, what kind of programs?
I've learned Final Cut first, and then on my first real video editing job, I learned Premiere, and now I work in Avid and Resolve also. So how,
I know, because it's just so, I don't know, it's confusing, all those programs. Like, is there one program that you like in particular?
I feel way more comfortable using Premiere, just because I've used it the most. Also, color grading and Resolve, I feel very comfortable, but I'm not like a, real professional colorist, can do things that I can't even touch. I just don't even have the equipment. But now I've been spending the last few years trying to get more familiar with Resolve. And even though the function is the same as within Premiere, it's just a little bit of a different memory muscle. So now I'm trying to focus my effort on becoming as good in Avid as I am in Premiere.
And so in your first job, you said, what was your first job actually?
So my first job, video editing, out of college was for a company called allforcellular.com with a 4. Oh. And my job was to make product review videos. So, I was doing it with a janky camera on a table. My coworker taught me how to use Premiere. She made the intro video and then would kind of help me write a little script. And I would just review weird shit eventually, and they just kept asking for more and more and more, and I was getting paid $12 an hour, I think.
Damn.
And by the time I left, I was making 10 a day. and just like building out their YouTube playlist. And I don't even know if that company still exists, but it was a really, really weird time.
Speaking of which, we have a video. We can just like...
Here we have the Apple iPhone 4 3D Bling Lizard case. It has this...
So that's you talking.
That's me talking. Those are my hands.
Nice.
You'll see it comes out about...
I was like, always like, what the fuck am I going to say about this? Like, it has no functionality. I don't even know why someone made this.
Damn.
Clear ones. And then the back is also lined in rhinestones as well as this pink background.
Yeah, it's actually cool too. It's so weird.
It's so weird.
Wow.
And there were just millions of cases. Like, I would just walk into the warehouse and pick up whatever
All you have to do is just snap it.
random ones. Sometimes they tell me something specific, but mostly I was just like, oh, this is ridiculous.
We have a
So how long have you been doing this?
So you've been watching all for cellular?
So this was like 12 or 13 years ago at this point now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like in my very early 20s.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my first editing job, but I learned how to use Premiere. So then
Nice.
after that, I got like a post PA, like intern gig, I think, on this movie called Warrior Women. And that whole team was amazing. And I met this documentary editor there, Keiko Deguchi, who was so like brilliant and kind, and like her approach to like editing, like her just everything about her like really solidified for me that like that was the path that I wanted to pursue. And you know, that was in like 2013, so yeah, that was a long time ago. And that was like my first job on a movie. And then I had a bunch of other super weird jobs. I worked at Viacom for like 4 years.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I worked. That was probably about when we met, because
Yeah.
I worked on the night shift.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I would like, they would always pay for a cab home.
Yeah, that's what you told me.
So,
sick.
I lived in Ridgewood at the time, and the office was in Soho, so I would take my cab to Bossa almost every single night. And you know, I'd pull up at like 2 a.m, like still a few hours. Like I was basically on like a DJ schedule. It was great. And I worked 4 days a week for most of that time too. And like I got paid really well. It was a really, really good job, but it was super boring. But so I was also assistant editing during the day sometimes. Like I'd go on these like 2-week stints of like having a second job, and I got all this AE, like assistant editor experience in that time. So that 4 years of working at Viacom, I was like, okay, I'm never going to like have a creative job at this company or like where I'm at. So I quit, and I decided to start freelancing at that point, and then got like a full-time job as an in-house editor and got a bunch of great experience. Also just like worked for great people. They're called Vacation Land. And then in July of 2021, I think, oh my God. Yeah, no, July of 2021, they laid me off because like, you know, it was such a small company, and it had been like a hard time with like going through the pandemic, and it was just better for them to like have freelancers. So I started freelancing at that point, and like within a week of getting laid off, I had a phone call to get the job on this docuseries. And then since then, it's just been this like really lucky back to back of cool like movies and series jobs.
Nice. So is this something you're interested in working in feature like films, documentaries? Yeah,
I mean, I really like I had all this experience doing a lot of stuff within post-production. So yeah, my primary focus is feature length documentaries and also narrative films. I would say, you know, with that format, I've been working as an assistant editor. And most recently, I got an associate editor credit on this documentary called Union, which was amazing. Such a great project with really good people involved. And So I got that bump up. Yeah, there you go. Went to Sundance. Very much like just a huge accomplishment for me. And so now the goal is to kind of, and I guess I should clarify that documentary and narrative get like treated very differently in terms of post-production. Like it's, you know, like different processes. The editors sort of have different roles. Like with documentary, they're more of doing more story producing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because even if a documentary editor comes in with like a thesis of what the film should be, sometimes what you shot is, it's really hard to make that materialize. So, or you shoot something and you find that there's something else that's actually more interesting. So, so documentary editing is like a really different intellectual practice, I think, than narrative editing, which also has its, I'm learning, because like now I'm working on a narrative film, I'm seeing how the editor and the director go back and forth. And like, you know, I was like, God, this is going to be so easy because they have a script, and I'm amazed like to see how they problem solve. And it's so different. So yeah, the goal is to like eventually just be editing feature length films. But I also love being an assistant editor. So it's a more technical job, and it's more of like a support role, but I feel comfortable doing it. And it also gives me an opportunity to work with cool editors.
So can you like walk us a little bit, like what's the process of being an editor? Like what do you do?
Well, I think that process looks differently for lots of people. I think some people like shoot a film, you know, they direct a film and then they edit it themselves, and then they can go on to be hired as an editor by other people. Some people go to film school. I didn't go to film school. I didn't have like a film network. I think that the way that I entered it, like most of the things I've tried in my life, like I did it in sort of like a janky, very inelegant way, but I did it in the way that made sense to me based on the resources that I had. I like leaned in on the small network of people working in post-production and film that I had. And I just kept doing that. I just kept identifying people that I wanted to work with, or that I could tell respected me and like backed me. And I just made sure that I like created relationships with those people. So I think everybody could kind of come to it in a different way, but I definitely leveraged my network.
Yeah, that's so inspiring, because I feel like so many people, when they try to get into specific careers, they feel like, oh, I need to go to grad school, I need to have a master degree, but it's not the only way. Like,
yeah. No, I think that all of my on-the-job experience made it possible for me to just keep moving forward. I just kept meeting like good mentors or good teachers. And when I worked at Viacom, also part of like the benefits as a full-time employee was money to take courses. They gave you $10,000 a year to take courses, which I had a great manager who was willing to kind of like I didn't need to learn After Effects to do my job. I didn't need to learn Spanish to do my job. Or like Max MSP or Avid, or Resolve. But my manager was sort of in cahoots with me when I would apply for these classes. So I wound up taking all of these like continuing ed and software courses that gave me the skills that I needed to go freelance. So when I left that job, I left with like way more knowledge. And also just like I was in my mid-20s. So at that point I kind of had like I had more of a level head, because I think before it was good to have that job in my early 20s, because I was like, I was just partying so hard.
So it's kind of like, it was like a school, actually. It was like being in having a job, but also, yeah. So is it something that like you're pursuing right now? Like how do you learn new skills, like learn new techniques?
Mostly YouTube, on the fly. Like, how do I do this? Like, I mean, I feel like I have to. I can't believe I've been doing this job for so long, and there's still so much I don't know. Like, that kind of drives me crazy, but it's also cool that you can always be evolving.
Nice.
So YouTube, I, ask people. Like, I have a great Slack channel that is like all just tech support. I also do a lot of like online webinars.
Oh, nice.
Like the union, now I'm in the editors union. And just like other groups will, like post groups will host webinars that sort of help shed light on like some piece of the software that I'm using. And so, especially if it's free, like anytime I see that, I'll always do it. And like, last summer I got an Avid certification.
Oh, nice.
So that was like, I think it's a 20-hour long course just so you get certified in this software. I can't say I like learned that much from it, but it made me just feel a little more confident to use it, which like is kind of half the game.
Nice. So is it like, what kind of softwares are you currently using?
Every day I use Avid. I use Resolve still for certain things. Media Encoder, sometimes Premiere, Photoshop. Yeah.
Nice. Is it like, I feel like I study design and Photoshop is always like so mysterious and complex. Like, I don't want to learn it. Like,
I hate it.
Yeah.
I really don't understand how Photoshop works. Like I have like a template for what I need to do, and what I need to do is pretty simple, and I just like stick to that, but
nice.
It's so confusing. I don't like it, but I just have to, like, because being an assistant, you're required to kind of do whatever. Like, you need to be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, and so if I can do like the basic thing just to satisfy the needs of the editor, like that is fine. And I just try to like focus my energy on honing other skills that I think are more essential, like storytelling,
Like, do you have, are you currently interested in like a different field, like something that like would use your creativity?
No.
Like, do you have like something you want to experiment with, or like an idea of?
Honestly, I just want to be an editor. Like,
why?
and it's always been that for me. Like, I don't want to direct. I don't want to produce. Like, I think that there's so much creativity that goes into editing that it feels like a holistic practice to me. Like, it's emotional, it's mental, it's technical, like, it's collaborative. Like, the relationship between the editor and the director is so special and can be so fraught and so deep. And like, I'm seeking that connection. Like, I'm kind of looking for like my director soulmate who like we can make like Scorsese has an editor who's for like,
really? He has like one editor, like the same editor.
And it's a woman. So, and it's just like, and obviously I could work with lots of people, but like it's sort of that closeness. And even being an assistant, like trying to find an editor who I can go with from project to project. Like, that's what I've been looking for, because I know that that's sort of like the step that I want to take to get to the edit chair. But yeah, and I mean, I'm also not, I believe that life is so much more than work.
Yeah.
And I see that editing can have a structure that allows for like a rich life. Not just like in terms of money, but a rich life in terms of time. The ability to have like a family, have interests in other fields, have like hobbies, travel. I feel like it's like it can be an ethical place for labor in the edit room. Yeah, I don't know. It's always felt to me like the perfect job.
Nice. Yeah, because like you love traveling, like it's something
Yeah.
that like is so important for you. And like now that you're a freelancer, like do you feel like do you still have that freedom, or are you more stressed about trying to find?
It's hard. Like I went away last year for 2 months, and that was the only vacation I've been on since you know, for the last year. So, but I just because I've been working, and when this project ends, I hope to go on like a big trip. But it actually is kind of hard to travel when you freelance, because you don't know if you go away, are you gonna like mess up a bag like in the future, or like if you go away, you're also just going to be spending money. So it's like, it's kind of scary, but I'm trying to find the balance and just be brave and like buy the ticket and just go.
Yeah, it's like I feel like you just have to do it. Like it's a kind of like a risk, but then as you said, like life is bigger than work.
Yeah.
So finding the line is always yeah. But I'm curious, for instance, with Union, like how did you got to work on that film?
So much like every other job I've ever gotten, it was just a connection. A friend of mine put me in touch, or put the producer in touch with me. They were friends. They needed an AE for this project. I didn't even know what it was, but once they told me, I was like, I definitely want this job. I was like, this sounds so cool. And I was just supposed to come on for a couple weeks, but I identified all this other work that needed to be done conveniently, and I just kept staying, and they liked my work. I liked working with them. They liked working with me. And, you know, I could just kind of tell that there was like something special happening with that movie. And I was doing other stuff on the side just to like make up for the 2-month trip that I had just taken that like I'll never financially recover from. And, but I just kept staying. And then I got a job offer to work on the movie that I'm on now. And it's an A24 movie. It's a horror movie, which was like, it's like my favorite kind of movie. And it was a union job, and I've been dying to get into the union because obviously I can't afford health insurance. And
so how did you get into the union?
So there's, when it comes to documentaries, there's not a lot of union documentaries, even though the movie I worked on was called Union. The crew is not unionized. It's just like, there's just different rules for certain productions. And so I had never even come into contact with the union job, like whereas like a narrative film, so something like a drama or a comedy, like a, you know, an A24 movie, that's going to have a union requirement for the crew and then the post-production team. So basically they hired me even though I wasn't in the union, under the assumption that I would immediately join. And so like I can't join the union unless I'm on a union job, which is so weird because it's really all it takes is just like meeting a person who will take that chance on you, hire you, and help you gain the access. And thanks to the editor who I had met the year before, we were like working on a job in the same post house on the Y2K movie. And we were like both vaped outside every day, and we just like got to chatting, and I just was like, oh my God, this guy is so cool. And I just emailed him, and then he was like, I know you don't have the experience, but I'd rather work with you if you're like motivated to learn. And like just generously like became my mentor. I don't know if that was what he signed up for, but like he is, and I respect him so much, and I really, really appreciate him. Because he it's like thanks to him that I'm in the union, and thanks to him that I got this really great job that has like potentially, you know, every job can like change the course of your career. Wow. You know, so shout out to Ron Doolin.
Yeah, shout out. And speaking of which, we have a video of Time Bomb Y2K.
Yes.
So you worked on this film?
Yeah, this I worked on in 2022 into 2023. with an amazing team of people, directed by Brian Becker and Marley McDonald. Marley was also the editor for the film, and eventually another editor, Maya Moma, came on, who is also just like an incredibly talented person, like so smart, so nice. Everyone who worked on this movie, like, we just had the best time, honestly. Like, every day it was this cool, like, creative process. They really valued our input in a way that is like very uncharacteristic of most editing processes, like, which is just a testament to how cool they are as people, but also like how smart they are, because this movie came out great. We did a great job.
Yeah, the footage is insane. Like, it's so nice. So where did they find the footage?
Everywhere. YouTube, news stations, like Canadian news stations, VHS tapes. We sourced like even independent filmmakers from that time who were working on Y2K stories. We'd reach out to them directly. Home movies from some of the people who were like, we'd find someone in an interview, reach out to them and ask them to submit footage if they had anything.
Oh, wow.
So it was just this constant like process. Like, we would identify someone in the footage, do a deep dive into researching them, and see what we could find.
So were you like, so you worked as an editor, but you were also involved in like finding threads and like researching and all
I was the assistant editor. And so like the two editors and Brian was also the producer, and he's an archival producer. So he's just kind of like the GOAT. Like, he just knows how to find anything. He knows how to like negotiate with the people who are sending the mass. Like, he's such a good producer. But they'd like work all week, but then once a week we would have a creative meeting with like the directors and one of the other archival producers and the associate producer and me, obviously. And we would just like talk about what stood out to us that week, like that we watched, or something that we like, something we're thinking about, or something that's interesting, or watch a cut and then be like, what's not working, what could go. Yeah, like just really deep, like philosophical questions about Y2K and the 90s, and like it was such a great like in-depth history lesson that lasted a year. I worked on that movie for a year.
Oh, a year.
Yeah.
So would you like be meeting like every day or
just once a week?
Once a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you know, we sort of get our like call to action from that, and then go work on that for a week, come back, reevaluate, and yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's crazy. I had no idea that like there was like this whole process behind making movies, and like I love the fact that it's like community driven, like it involves so many people, but it's not just like transactional, you know, I feel like you make connections and it becomes kind of like a family.
Oh, totally. Wow. I feel like that's something that I look for in people to work with, is like people who are interested in building a world for each other. Like, because during the time of working, you're consumed by one topic usually. You're all like wrestling with the same issues, and if you have directors or producers who care about you and respect you, then they're going to do everything in their power to like make it so that experience is going to be good. And when I see people like other filmmakers who I think align with those values of just wanting to not only make a really good movie and like inspire anyone who watches it, but also like making the time spent making that movie like enriching, and make it so that the people working on it are invested, because it'll just make the movie better. Yeah, that's so important. Like in also any field, like I feel like if you're mean and you're just, you need to like have people genuinely involved in the project. So have you
encountered some obstacles or like challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lack of education in film was a pretty big obstacle.
Why?
Because I just didn't have the tools. I didn't know how to network. I didn't know how to use Avid, which is like an industry standard software. I don't know anything about like filmmaking at large. Like, I don't know anything about cameras or sound, or I didn't. Now I know more, but I just didn't even know where to start. I just was like, okay, I have this basic skill. How can I make it better? And how can I work on movies? I love movies. And I just kept like stating my intentions to people, educating myself, you know, and obviously I think when it wasn't happening like early on and I wasn't getting hired to work on movies, I tried to kind of go other routes within post-production, and which was also like skill development, but you know, could have been a little bit of a distraction or a delay of actually doing what I'm doing now, which is what the goal always was. But I would say those are probably the biggest obstacles, just lack of knowledge. But
I feel like it's impossible to know everything. It's like,
oh yeah,
like even like if you go to like Harvard, I don't know if there is a film school or whatever, like I feel like I would value more people who have real life experience than like a rich person who just has like the credentials.
I mean, I think some people feel that way. I feel that way, but there are lots of people who, you know, don't care. They just want someone with the experience. Like you know, when I worked for Vacation Land, I would hire people sometimes, and I would get resumes from people who had just graduated from NYU, who were like 21, 22, who had amazing internships, who had already worked on shows and films that like as post PAs or assistants or whatever, jobs that I wanted. And they were years younger than me. And that was very illuminating in terms of being like, oh, if you go to a private school, you have access to the industry in ways that like I definitely did not. And so it just sort of like expedites you on this path. And
it's so true.
And I mean, that's awesome. Really happy for those people. Like they're now after all these years, I'm sort of on par where they are. Yeah. But without knowing at all how to get there, just sort of figuring it out.
It's so unfair because like you studied like journalism, you know, like you spent so much, like you spent like, it's 4 years, right? And you know, like I feel like everyone should have access to the resources. Like, why should we have to just do what we decided to do when we were 18?
I know.
It's insane. And there are no resources available. So I feel like what you've done is so remarkable because like you found your own community and you find a way to get actually where you want to be and manifesting like, you know, you want to work in films and meet all those people and do something meaningful. Is there like a resource that you would recommend to people or like something that really helped you?
Definitely networking groups and social media. Like I hate to sound that basic, but like literally just posting stuff on your Instagram, like making yourself look like you're doing big, busy things, it creates an impression that you are, and then it like invents the reality
Really?
that you get. I'm serious. It really is like a fake it till you make it type of thing. And obviously you need to like have something to back that up, because then when you get there and you get the job, if you are like an idiot and or an asshole, you're not going to move on to the next phase. Although maybe being an asshole gets plenty of people somewhere, but faking it until you make it. And then finding groups like I'm on the steering committee for this group called the Alliance of Documentary Editors, and I think I joined in like 2019, the really late 2019, early 2020, and I just started going to their events and trying to meet people and just being part of their like online community. And that's been a great resource just for like orienting myself within the industry. I haven't like gotten much work from that exactly, but that's still a good resource to me. And I would say that the best resource of all is just being like a normal person who like people want to work with. Like I've definitely gotten jobs based like purely on my personality and not my skill set, just because, you know, like who do you want to sit in a room with for a year? Like who do you want to like be in the trenches with? Like me, or like some like rigid, burnt out, annoying man.
So have you do you have like one memory on working on a project that like really like marked like your life or inspired you?
There's moments in all of them. I mean, I think working on Y2K was great because it was the most involved I had been in a film's edit, and like just the communication was so great across the board, and I feel like I learned a lot about how to be better too, like how to be a better worker, like how to stay focused. I mean, yeah, I don't know, like even through like the ups and the downs, like I just felt like the environment was so nurturing that when I was like slacking at one point and they were like, you need to step it up, and they said it in such a way where I was like, you are so right. Like I need to step it up, and I did. And then like the like way I felt about myself, the way they felt about me, like instead of being like, oh, like I'm slacking, like fuck them, or like what, or like, oh, I'm shitty at this job. Like instead of taking that approach, like I was like, no, like I'm gonna really try to do better. And now I have that approach like going into every project I've had since then, where it's like stay focused. What did Eric Adams say? No distractions. We stay focused and we grind. What a psychopath. But I can't stop thinking about that ever since. And yeah, so that's kind of.
But so like how do you manage like your career and your life?
I mean, I'm, you know, in my mid 30s now, and I have like way less of a social battery to like be going out and hanging out every night of the week. So I think I balance by like sacrificing socializing. I mean, I still hang out a lot, and like I hang out probably more than most people do, but in comparison to the way that I used to socialize in my like 20s, it's far less. So I just try to do a lot of like me time.
Nice.
And like just keeping it chill. Like I just hate being like stressed out or like tired. So I don't know. I try to like do me.
Like what's your favorite like do me? Like what would you like, do you go to a sauna or like?
Oh, I love the spa, but like my typical routine of like I just need like a me day is like wake up, smoke a joint, make coffee, watch like 3 movies, do my nails, like exfoliate, like smoke weed again, like, you know, eat pizza and like go to bed, like that's just like a day of like kind of zoning out. Like that's, you know, I'm not like self-care doesn't have to look like a woo-woo, like, oh, I'm going to be like lighting my incense today. Like sometimes you just want to be like nasty and like stew in your like laziness. And I really like that.
Is it like, do you feel like working on films kind of change the way you look at like certain movies or?
Oh, definitely. It just hearing. Also, I think when you don't go to film school, you don't learn how to like talk about movies, you know, like, so I didn't know there's so much that goes into it, like from production design to the lighting to costumes, the director of photography, like there are all these people who are involved and who have like a very specific job and like put a lot of thought into that. And so I've learned how to really identify all these different parts and like how they come together and how it works or doesn't work. I also, during the pandemic, was doing this Zoom film club with these. It was.
Oh yeah, I remember.
It was
with Mateo.
Yes, yeah, with Mateo. Shout out Mateo.
Yeah.
And that really taught me how to talk about movies too, because those people are so freaking smart. Like now they're just my homies and we don't do the film club anymore, but they're like academics and like art curators and also filmmakers and journalists. So they just like or were equipped with this language to talk about movies that like really leveled me up personally in being able to think about things.
But is that in terms of like, like lighting or like kind of shots? Like what's the language?
I think mostly around story. And like they have an awareness of like the history of directors and like how they worked with producers or certain editors, and like I just don't have any of that film history like up in my head. Like obviously music has long been more of my hobby and like intellectual pursuit. Not that I make music, just music history as like a consumer and going out. And so I just like, there's just so much that I never even like knew that I should care about as someone who wants to make films, which sounds so ignorant, but you just don't. Like, how are you supposed to know?
It's
like,
true.
I didn't grow up in a family of filmmakers. Yeah. Like, it's
true. Even like with music, like how can you find like the music? It's like when people judge other people for not knowing, I don't know.
Yeah, like knowing New York house history or something. It's like, well, it's so expansive and it's dependent upon your frame of reference.
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up in Long Island, I didn't like cool stuff because I didn't know anybody that liked anything cool. And I was a child. And I was always like, when I got older, I was like, oh man, like it's so lame. And it's like, I was a little kid. Like,
how would you know?
Yeah, it's like you know, if you're lame now, then it's kind of on you.
Yeah.
Then you might just actually be a loser.
Yeah,
but you're not a loser. That's so mean. But
no, but
you
like,
might actually just be a little boring.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Because I feel like now everything is online. Like everything is available. Is that something that like are you constantly looking for new ideas, new directors, like trying to see what's out there?
I'm like always on IMDb. Like anytime I see a movie or even think about a movie or learn about an editor, I go on IMDb and I look at every movie they've worked on, and then and then I go like follow the trail of like the director's movies and other editors they've worked with, and I'm just always trying to, and the same with me, like I try to always learn about new music, like what's going on, so I can stay relevant, and like art and film. I just, those are already like a lot of interest and a lot of time spent on the internet, and I do my best.
And also like you're community driven, you work with the Alliance, and you do a lot of things on the side. So I'm curious, like you said, you're currently like you've been interested in horror movies and you're working on one. Like what interests you?
I just like the format of horror movies. They can be really creative and really different, or they can be really follow a script or follow like a predictable format, but I find comfort in that predictability. And I find that our waking lives in this world to be horrifying at times, and I think that the controlled manufactured horror of horror films weirdly brings me comfort.
So you mean like because it's predictable?
It's predictable, and I know it's not real. And I can like just appreciate, because obviously like I'm not like the most subversive person, but I'm drawn to like the darker side of humanity and how that becomes expressed in people's art. Because you know, without the dark there is no light, and I just feel like horror movies can be this place where screenwriters and directors can explore darkness in sometimes really beautiful ways. And I think it exposes things about humanity that you can't get in other genres.
But is it like, what's different? Like, for instance, when you worked on Union and now working on this movie, like, what's the difference in terms of like your tasks? And
I think my tasks are a little more varied on this movie. It's called Death of a Unicorn. Also, it's about unicorns. My tasks are different because of just the nature of like working on something that's narrative. Whereas with documentary, we had tons of footage and like not a clear story. And so, or I mean, there was a clear story, but it was like unclear how we could use all of this footage and put it together. So it was just a lot more like watching hours and hours of footage and like just trying to like digest it. I mean, there were a bunch of editors too, like amazing editors on that project who are like truly genius level, like deeply sensitive, like smart people. So I was a lot of just organizing a high volume of material, whereas with Death of a Unicorn, it's more like switching gears and doing a lot of like different little tasks. It's honestly way more chill than I ever thought it would be. I think it will become unchill by the very end. But right now it's really chill.
Nice. Yeah, it's like to go back to Union, I mean, the guy, what's his name?
Chris Malls?
Yeah, he's can you tell us a little bit about Union? It's about the Amazon labor union historic victory, right?
Yes.
And is it like, have you learned things you didn't know? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, a lot more was shot than what goes into the movie. So, you know, there's a lot of just actually seeing the ins and outs of labor organizing and how like politicians get involved or don't get involved, how they fight against it, all of the different challenges, like even just blanket like grassroots organizing. That was really interesting to me. It was also, you know, post like George Floyd protest era and seeing these like relationships dynamics play out in organizing like groups was kind of like painful because, you know, having lived through that moment and feeling this surge of like solidarity and optimism, and then watching the fallout, watching all these companies like show their ass that like they never really cared, and they're not going to do anything about it, and how that creates this like schism within these groups that all have the same goal but maybe just want to take a different path. So it's a good like cautionary tale for me as I'm trying to do like more community organizing. I learned a lot from that movie. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I remember watching Chris in some of the podcasts like back, I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago, but then seeing that this movie is out, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I think it's something you mentioned, like in one of our exchange, you said that like you wanted to work on world building and, you know, working on things that kind of like you said you want to imagine a future you want to be alive for.
Yeah.
And I think that's so inspiring and that's so important. You know, it's like, why are we making those films? Like,
Yeah.
like I feel like especially now with what we're experiencing, yeah, I'm curious, like what's your dream job, like a project, like what's your dream?
I don't have one. I feel like it will be a collection of many, because there's so many. When it comes to documentary, there's just so many issues that I care about.
Yeah.
And like, I think documentary editors will get sort of pigeonholed. Like if you made a documentary about abortion, every time someone's staffing up an abortion documentary, they're going to go look for you as that editor, because you have the experience. Because you do have to do like, you have to really invest yourself in a topic for the length of that edit. And you have to do a lot of research. You have to like come to understand the issue in like a really deep way, so much so that you can communicate that to other people. And so I get why people get pigeonholed, but you know, I'm not a genius, but like I know how to research and I know how to like think about things deeply. So, and I can think about different things at any given moment. So I don't want to be pigeonholed. Like I don't want to work on one kind of thing. Like I care about immigration. I care about anti-imperialism. I care about anti-capitalism. I care about feminist issues. I care about queer liberation, Black liberation, environmentalism. Like the list goes on. There's really no shortage to the things that I feel are so interconnected.
Yeah.
It's like all part of the same like global struggle.
Yeah.
Like all of us having these like existential crises and like the face of how the world really works. And I think that documentary can help make sense of that.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I feel like you can learn so much by just watching a documentary. And it's like this perspective that like is missing. Because like we can be like, you can watch films on Netflix and then get nothing out of it. And you're like, why am I spending my time? Like I want to connect with like that humanity. But also it's something, I'm curious, like, do you feel the same? Like, I feel like when you care about like one of the topics you just said, like it's just like sometimes people frame you as being an activist, which is kind of crazy because it's like every human should care about all of these things. Like it's not being activist, you know what I mean? But people always would want to pigeonhole you into this activist kind of like category. Yeah. And I can see it in music as well. And and it's so annoying.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, if you're doing it to virtue signal and you're not really about it, then like that's whack. But I would be so honored if someone called me an activist, because all the coolest people I know are activists, like who just advocate for people and like try to impact other people's lives. Like,
yeah, but I feel like it's kind of like when people say, oh, liberals, you know, the terms liberals. I feel like everyone should be this activist tab. Yes. Because activism is deeper than that. It's not like I've seen like people complaining about it. Like if they post about an issue, they're called activist. But real activism is like something deeper than like, for example, me, I've posted something about an issue and then people call me activist. Or like my tracks have like political titles and it's not. And it's, I don't know, it's a weird thing. Like, do you feel like working in film, like, is this something you're cautious about or?
No, because I feel that there are other filmmakers who get it. Yeah. And I know some of them. I'm like honored to have worked with some of them. And I don't think that I need to be afraid, because I feel confident that there are people who I can stay aligned with, and there are people who won't want to hire me because of whatever my political values are. And if that's the case, like, I don't want to work with them either.
Yeah.
And like, so true. And I think that, like, you know, part of what you're saying is that, like, this branding of, like, being an activist musician, it, like, cheapens the work, right? Like, if you're just making activist music, then you're not making, like, heady, cool electronic music that people can dance to at the club. Like, it somehow recontextualizes it, but it's like, it's all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you care about an issue and you're an artist, like, you cannot separate those two things.
Yeah.
And if you're just making music and you don't care about anything, then, like, your music probably sucks.
It's so true. Yeah. Oh my God. I have so much to say about that.
You can hear it when someone's not about it. You can hear it. It's got no vibe.
Wow. But yeah, I'm kind of, like, interested in your, like, what's next for you? What's your projects coming up? And
so I don't have anything next. I'm on the Unicorn movie till April, and then I'll have to, you know, I'd really like to go on a vacation.
nice.
My mom, like I was saying, she's an Irish immigrant. I've never been to Ireland with her.
Oh wow.
So she wants to go. So definitely going to try to make that happen this summer, this spring.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I think that'll be a really special experience because I have a sister who grew up there this is such a long story, but my mom had a daughter when she was 18 and gave her up for adoption. So she grew up there and has this whole other family.
Whoa.
I met her when I was 18. She's amazing. And she's, like, totally cosmically my sister. And I have another sister who I grew up here with in America. And so she said that sister's going to come, my mom, and we're all going to go visit my other sister.
Wow, damn, that's so cool. I didn't know. Wow. So, like, have you, I mean, it's kind of, have you been in touch with, like, your, like, family in like, your Irish family, like, or? So
my mom doesn't have much of a relationship with them, and there's just not a lot of them, period. So it's going to be interesting to see my mom with her sister, like, or my aunts and uncles who, like, I don't really know. But my Irish family is more like my sister's adopted family. Like, they all, like, as soon as I met them, they, like, welcomed me. I mean, Irish people are the fucking best. They're the coolest.
Honestly, yeah, they're the best. Like, they give, like, and it's even, like, the culture is so cool. Like, I've been, like, seeing some flute music, like, you know, Irish flute music. It's so cool. It's like and shout out to Orlando because, like, he made me want to research that.
What's crazy is when you're in Ireland, like, you could pull up to a pub, like, in a small town, and there's, like, someone playing, like, a little guitar, flute, like, or a fiddle, and just singing, and it's, like, it's so low key, and it's just beautiful, and, like, it's, like, no big deal. Like, it's just, like, what they do. It's such a cool culture.
Yeah, it's like a chill little, like, I feel like, you know, like, the perfect imaginary land.
Yeah, it's like the Shire. It's like the Hobbits.
I want to go.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. But I wanted to talk about one thing before. Oh, congrats on your fellowship.
Thank you.
And yeah, like, you when did you get it?
So I found out that I was awarded the Karen Schmier editing fellowship. It's for documentary editors. I found out I got it in September and then officially started in October, or maybe August, September. And it's a mentorship. I'm in a cohort of 6 women. We have 2 women mentors for the group. They're so cool, very supportive. It's been really nice. We meet once a month, and we'll either, like, give feedback on someone's project, or we watched a movie and then the editor came and talked to us, which was so cool. Yeah, we have, like, we kind of design it ourselves as the cohort, like, what we want to get out of it. The mentors will try and provide. And So, you know, we just came up with a list of like what we would ideally like to get out of it. And I think generally everyone just like wants some ideas on how to be more creative and like think about things and work better with directors and producers.
Nice. Is it like something like, do you have to give a report by the end of the fellowship or?
No.
That's so cool. I love it.
No required. Like there's nothing asked of us. Like no, nothing. Just, it's literally just an opportunity to like build a relationship with your cohort and mentors.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like, as someone who I've been sharing so many opportunities. I was so happy to see like video editing, you know, opportunities, fellowships. And it's something that like, I want to see more because most of the time, you know, it's really rare. Like I haven't seen that many opportunities. And if you're listening to this podcast or watching us, you can, what's the name? Check out the
Karen Schmier editing
Schmier
fellowship. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Maybe it's documentary. No, I think it's Karen Schmier editing fellowship.
But I'll include the links. And thank you so much, Katie, for being with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And I'll include all of your links. And see you next time.